How's it going, law school applicants? R. Felix Finch here. I'm hoping that you have started on your application materials. It's June, summer's upon us. In just a couple short months, those applications will be opening. But if not, that's fine. This is a long process. It is a difficult process. It is an expensive process. And for those of us who are a little financially disadvantaged, or maybe don't have the professional background that others do, Spivey is here to help us. That's right, I'm here talking about Spivey's Pro Bono consulting program. Spivey Consulting is a collective of former law school admissions officers that do help with the law school admissions process. I believe they have other programs as well, but I'm specifically talking about law school. And last year, I was lucky enough to be accepted into their Pro Bono Opportunity Program, which means that I got free one-on-one counseling for one law school application specifically. Let's talk about that. Now, before we get into that, I'd like to say that Spivey Consulting has been given a copy of the script to this video ahead of time, so they could correct any factual inaccuracies. They caught a pretty big one when I sent it to them, as well as to have me remove anything that might be a trade secret. With that said, let's talk about the Pro Bono program. Now, the program does say it is aimed towards low-income and or diverse applicants, and I know I'm kind of brown, but I want to just emphasize diversity isn't always about race. In fact, in my case, I didn't mention race in a single bit of my application materials, and my name itself is fairly Anglo if you look at it. Instead, what I talked about as my diverse background was my criminal history. I have a fraud and a theft on my record, have other than honorable discharge. I have not done a lot in my life that would put me in any kind of preparation for this professional space. On top of that, my take-home income last year, my taxable income, was somewhere around the $3,000 area. So yeah, I am financially destitute. That said, I saw this, I applied for the program, I got accepted into it, and I got paired up with Joe Pollock. Look at him. Handsome dude, right? Yeah. Former admissions officer for the University of Michigan. Go Wolverines. They did not accept me, but that's beyond the point. We did an interview just to make sure we were a match at first, and we did, so we signed the contract, and we went into the service. You get an application for one school. In fact, you get the equivalent of their one school application package, which is normally $3,490. So essentially you're getting $3,500 in services for free, which is very nice. The contract does contain some terms like you won't use generative AI, and you are aware that despite getting this counseling and service, you are not guaranteed admission to any school in particular. You're not even guaranteed admission into a law school. Like, maybe you strike out. Who knows? But that's not the kind of energy we want to take into any of this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through each bullet point that they had on the blog post, and I'll tell you how I felt they're executed in practice. For anyone that wants to skip to my final thoughts, first off, see if you could help me move for law school. It's expensive. Go to brokelawstudent.com. But after you check out brokelawstudent.com, just skip ahead to this timestamp, and that will give you my final thoughts and conclusion. For those of you who have stuck around, here we go. Application review and editing. Much of the applications are straightforward, honestly. There's not a lot too complex in there. However, if you do have special circumstances, like I did, you might need to know whether or not certain schools would consider a particular thing to be a professional organization. There are, especially when it comes to the character and fitness questions, some things that could trip you up, so it's good to have guidance through that. Now, when it comes to resume strategy, review, and editing, that is where I needed the most help. I've done a lot of work in professional wrestling and stunt work and acting, so I didn't particularly have a constant professional career going that would look good on a resume. I've also done a lot of jobs that allowed me to take breaks, such as working in movie theaters, working in restaurants, and I've done gig work. None of this translates well to most professional resumes, and for none of those jobs have I had to produce a resume outside of a few acting roles, and an acting resume does not have the same components as a law school resume. Despite what Elwood's told you, no headshots. Now, personal statement, strategy, ideation, review, and editing, that was the most fun part of this process because this is where I got to talk a lot about myself and my past and my history. In fact, my overall goal with my personal statement was to connect my life in the world of professional wrestling to my interest in law and law school and how it could all come together to make the business better for anybody else who enters it. That was my goal going in there, and it was so nice to have an admissions officer there to tell me, hey look, this connects, this doesn't, and also to help me edit because, I'll be honest, I can be repetitive, I can be redundant, and I can say the same thing over and over and over again. Supplemental essay strategy, ideation, review, and editing. That is another thing that is very useful to have here. And that is my first big piece of advice for anybody utilizing this program. If you're so accepted, use it for something like Michigan or Duke, a school that has a lot of supplemental essays. Write all of those essays, have all those essays looked at. Then pick which ones you do send to those schools. And also, you can use the other essays and even the essays you decided to submit at times for other applications along the line. I think that is the most useful use of this program. I say that with the benefit of hindsight. It is not what I did, but it is good to have. Addendum strategy, review, and editing. They say if applicable, it was applicable to me. Like I said before, all I need is a good defense because I was feeling like a criminal because according to the law, I kind of am one. Or a former one. We'll see how that goes when it comes to bar, character, and fitness. Oh, I do not look forward to that. I needed help here to figure out how to best communicate my past to admissions officers because it was going to make me look bad anyway. But I will say that Joe, MVP here, he really stepped in and stopped me from just looking absolutely terrible. Because there are sometimes they ask you to divulge arrests that didn't result in charges, situations like that where you can look really bad if you say the wrong things. And I almost stuck my foot in my own mouth, proverbially speaking, for some of these addenda. So it was great to have somebody to go through this with that knew what admissions officers would be looking for. Now they'll help you with editing, email, communications. I didn't have to use that at all. I never really emailed Harvard or anything, and it is a service though. Had I had to use it, I would have absolutely loved it because there is nothing more terrifying than having to send more information to these admissions officers and suddenly finding yourself having sent something with a typo or addressing the wrong person or addressing the wrong school. So yes, on top of being vigilant on your own, it does help to have somebody there to help you with the emails. Again, if it comes up. It didn't come up for me, but I can absolutely see how this would have been useful had I needed it. Now, preparation for phone conversations or visits up through the date that your application is turned in. I didn't use it for that. I more so got advice on how to interact with the schools once I went to the LSAT forums. And there's not a lot about LSAT forums. I'm probably going to do a separate video about that because I think it is useful for people to know what they're getting into when they go to these, or like how these are of any use to them. Spoiler alert, they are very useful. They are very helpful. I will, again, make a video about that because people need to know, and not enough people know. In the interview preparation, this is where Joe suggested that I use Harvard, because I was between using it for Harvard, Yale, or Duke, and again, I kind of wish I'd have used it for Duke or Michigan. He was a former Michigan's admissions representative, so maybe I would have helped myself there a little more, but he suggested Harvard, or he really suggests any school with an interview, because then he gets to help beyond the application process to the actual interview process. Again, solid piece of advice. I never got interviewed, but again, going back, I probably honestly still would have picked the same for the reason he suggested, but again, on my reasoning of choosing a school that has a lot of essays so that it helps you out on your other applications, especially as somebody that did 49 applications, yeah, that is probably a lot more helpful. Now, when it comes to broad level strategy, advice, and answering questions via phone calls and email, I don't know if this is the standard mode for all of the consultants, but Joe was very communicative and open. At the beginning of each month, there was a client email blast that went out, and it kind of updated us on, as far as they knew, what was going on with the admissions cycle, what the numbers were looking like, advice for where we should kind of be in the process, what we should be focusing on, what we should be doing. He used Calendly, which was great for getting together either a Zoom call or a phone call, and I've got to thank him again, because there were times when I would set a time for a meeting and I was late showing up, and he would be sure to reach out and make sure that I got the memo that the meeting had started that I had set the time for. Again, that's on me. My mistake there. I just gotta say, Outlook is the worst email system to use. God, does it suck. And with the RSVPs going out of your inbox, that's not a great feature. What you do in Outlook. But Joe also did keep in touch with me after I got my Harvard rejection, and just kept up with what was going on with me and my cycle, and seems genuinely excited to find out where I end up committing for law school in August. So, is the Pro Bono program worth it? Yes! Yes! Oh my God, yes! Oh, why is that even a question? Like, seriously, this is a very stressful process. It is full of uncertainty. There is so much going on through it. You need somebody with you through this, and who better to have with you than somebody who has gone through this process over and over again, and even been on the other side of this process, being the one causing you stress and anxiety. Yes! Oh, this is such a great program. And another thing I'd say is, for anybody who is a first generation like myself, who has nobody from that professional background to help you through the process that is applying to a graduate or law or med school, yes, this is exactly the kind of thing that helps diversify the legal field with new experiences. And yes, absolutely, oh my God, without question. Now, my advice once again for anybody that has skipped through just to this point, yes, apply, and if you get accepted, choose a school that has a lot of supplemental essays that you can use. That way you can get all of those reviewed and edited, and then submit them to the schools you want, and use them for other schools in your application process. Again, I went through 49. I hope to God anybody else going through this isn't doing anywhere near as many. I hope you don't. I hope you were much smarter than me in my youth and decide to, and are, in much easier yes than I am. And that is one thing I will say. Joe told me that I was his second most challenging client he's ever had as far as putting together materials goes, and that I do not want to know what his worst was like, because again, I've got theft and fraud, two things that the legal field very much looks down upon for good reason. Don't get me wrong, I am not complaining about the fact that I caused myself my own challenges. I'm just saying, even with it being a decade ago, it was a very tough and rough cycle. And I honestly, even though, out of 49, I only got 5 acceptances and, a handful of wait lists, I don't know that I'd even be doing that well without the help. And for that, I am super grateful. Now, before I go, please, as soon as it's up, I will post a link below to Spivey's blog and where you can sign up for the Pro Bono program yourself, or you can apply for the Pro Bono program. There are at least 25 slots for next year. Again, next cycle is going to be a shit show. It is going to be a madhouse. I do not envy any of you, so please put your best work out there. Do everything you can, all the cliches, but give yourself the best opportunity for your dream school to say yes. And that's what it comes down to, is this is an opportunity to find out how to best, if not get a yes, put yourself in the position to be told yes. Again, I'm R. Felix Finch. This is Chaotically Lawful. You can help me get to law school at brokelawstudent.com. And y'all have a good night, folks. The next video I put out will be about my application experience and essays. So